Is this working? Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Forever Conscious Research Channel. Hope you're having a good evening and a great weekend ahead of that lies ahead. Today, I have a great guest who I have been following probably about maybe 4 months, 3 months, somewhere around there, and he has got the YouTube channel Sky Family Connector. His name is Jayta Rhedman. And he is, as I said, the Sky Family Connector, is a contact practitioner who has engaged in many independent contact events and has developed his insights based on observation and consciousness-related studies. He promotes contact as a way to expand consciousness and encourage a greater spirit and larger outlook for humanity. He'll be sharing his experience with anomalous aerial forms and detail his experience and observations regarding their complexities. And basically what I wanted to add also to his bio and introduction is that he's got a great variety of different anomalies that he's captured. And some of them in advance are... They resemble balloons, and I'm going to periodically bring this up through the stream in case people randomly jump in and say, oh, that's a balloon, because the most important thing is that you're open to it and that you can say, oh, that looks a little off or that looks a little different. And if you start hunting through YouTube, you'll start to see that there are many of these balloon-like anomalies, and once you start to kind of see the way they move, the way they form, the way they'll kind of change shape, all sorts of different things, you'll understand that this goes way beyond anything that we could really comprehend, and most of it, if not all of it, goes down to consciousness. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Jayta Rhedman to the show. Welcome, my friend. It's great to have you with us.
Glad to be with you, man. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. I'm excited to have you. I've really been looking forward to this. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into filming anomalies
Well,
and consciousness.
sure. I guess my whole way about me has always been interested in things that are kind of a little far out, but also I've maintained a kind of I guess conservatism when it comes to just like intellectual, rational materialism in the world that I was living in. To kind of straddle the fence there a bit.
Sure.
But at some point, 2015 into 16, I forget exactly what the original spark was, but I got interested in the question of consciousness, and specifically, do we have free will? I was watching videos. I watched Sam Harris. He's a popular guy, has a channel, and he's a neurobiologist who studies these things, questions of God and different aspects of psychology. But I was just into his question about free will, and I was sharing it with friends, and yeah, that was pretty much a big thought. It was always on my mind for about a year or so, and things seemed to start just building up towards the middle to the end of 2016. We were in an election cycle. I had pretty strong feelings about what was going on. But at the same time, this idea of consciousness, so it seemed to be a gateway for maybe a deeper spiritual realization. At any rate, a couple of other events happened just prior to March of 2017. In the beginning of that year, I had been hanging out with a friend, and we had been talking about consciousness. Also, we talked about the idea of illusion and magic, a la David Blaine. I don't know if you've
Mm-hmm.
heard of him, major magician.
You kind of sound like him.
Okay. He's a kind of mystic sounding dude, so I
Yeah.
take that as a compliment. He you know he made us ask between ourselves, what are our abilities as humans. It was just such a an interesting conversation I had with my friend. It really brought it up. It really kind of stirred the pot, because we were kind of contending on the idea of the ability to do magic, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
And then, finally it was just a kind of a lightweight, little synchronous thing that was we were deciding to play together music, as we're guitarists and we like to play and get together and just casually play. But we were thinking about doing something more formal, forming a duo and maybe playing out.
And what kind of instruments do you play?
Guitars.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we were choosing some covers maybe to play, and one of them was this song, The Logical Song, by a group called Supertramp. And in the refrain of that song, towards the end, it just has this this line that repeats. It says, "Please tell me who I am." And as I was hearing it this one particular night with my friend, it just, something came over me when I was hearing it. It was just like I'd never heard the song before, but of course I'd heard it millions of times. And I'm like, man, isn't that just deep? I just told my friend, isn't that deep? And yeah, it's deep. And he wasn't there for too much longer, but the whole night I felt kind of in this headspace, just like I had really kind of done something there, performed a little magic unwittingly, by saying, "Please tell me who I am." Catching this thread of thought that we could go into. Why, again, free will. Was I meant to say that? Was I meant to have these experiences that were kind of precognitive or transpersonal type of things happening? Well, it was just the very next day that I was given a YouTube recommendation came up, and it was a video of Prophet Yahweh, who was the first summoner of sky objects that I had ever seen. I had seen the video back, I think, in around 2009 or 10, and when I saw it at that time, it was cool. The man, Prophet Yahweh, did a religious invocation, and I wasn't into that religion, so it didn't inspire me in a way that told me, hey, you can do this too.
Makes sense. Yeah.
And I just watched it, and it was astounding, and I just put it away. And then it came up this day after as a recommended video, and I'm like, oh, I remember that video. So I watched it again, noticed on the sidebar that there were other videos now of other people doing this, and I was just interested, clicked on those, and one of these was Robert Bingham, who is a man out in Los Angeles, and he had a simple instruction, like a 1, 2, 3 basic instruction on how to do this.
Yeah, Robert's work is great.
Yeah, and it was a green light for me. I went out as soon as I saw one of his videos that had the simple instructions, went outside, and I had an instant event occur where these two orbs went through the sky at night. They were very dim, and because they were dim, I wasn't sure what they were. I was like, is this almost so dim as to look like the outline of birds, but very, very high and very moving in a pattern that didn't look organic. Just looked very much like an object. But some told me that was it. I felt I felt really excited, and so the next morning I went out. Same thing, although this time it was in the morning light of day. So within just those first 2 days, within 24 hours, I'd had a daytime and a nighttime event.
Wow.
Still not understanding really anything about it, just knowing that something was happening. Yeah. and on and on. I spent the next couple months only going out in the day for
Hmm.
some reason. I don't know. There's just no reason. I just happened to do that. I just went out every day and had a bunch of daytime events. And boy, I could go on from there because there was a very, very kind of crunched amount of synchronous events that happened in that first month.
That's
Um,
interesting because for me, I started everything at night and then I ended up going to the day much later. I mean, I just wasn't, I don't know, I just wasn't really having as many connections, but that's awesome. Because I think the daytime ones are, much better. And, because you have that visualization. You have, you're able to see the whole sky better. But I
right,
mean, the nighttime's still great. It's still really fun experiences, but
right.
sorry, go ahead.
Well, and that's basically in a nutshell. From that point on, it was just a steady dedication to practicing it.
Mm.
I do call it a practice, and I see each event as a type of step up or an enhancement of or an inner practice that one does, and it really enhances one spiritually, if we want to put it in those terms.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure.
Yeah. Um, so it's been
Mm.
just great. And I was thinking earlier, I was thinking that, this, I said in one of my videos a while back that this is a great stress reliever, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It's a
Yeah.
great stress reliever. If you think about just loosening up, going outside, looking into the sky, spreading your arms out, just giving your all, just that kind of connection is it's meditative, and it's uh, just cathartic in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and I think with the whole thing, it's that connection with Nate. It's not just the consciousness; it's just nature in general too. I think that connection is embedded in us, and if we take advantage of it, and connect with oneness, I guess we should say, and
Right.
and get ourselves and completely entrenched in it, it ends up responding. You get
Yes.
responses from nature
Yes.
in many different ways too. There's so many different things that can occur when you do that.
And wouldn't that, just on an intuitive level, wouldn't that serve us well as a
Hmm.
species to become more connected with nature at
We
this time,
desperately need
especially?
it. We
Yeah.
definitely we need it. We need it terribly right now.
So
It's
there was that one side of thinking about it, how it can be a great stress reliever, but of course there's this doubling, right? You have
oh
this dichotomy. It can also be a stressor, inducer.
yeah.
So I know that there's certain people that have not received this in the same way that I have. I'm just always overjoyed, always excited when an event happens for me. But some other people that I've been with and just that I've experienced online have
Mm-hmm.
expressed more inhibition, more apprehension to go forward with it. And I understand it because we're bombarded with all kind
Oh yeah, absolutely.
of information. I don't want to qualify any of it. I just want to say we're bombarded with information, and to knowing how the human mind kind of limitations in our linguistic abilities, our linguistic discourse, and our materialistic limitations. That's rough for us to deal with all the information
It
that we
is,
get.
and especially in a time where everything seems to, I'm just gonna say it seems inverted. It seems
Hmm.
like it really seems like we are on the edge of some sort of change here on Earth, and we're kind of fighting for our souls in a way. I kind of look at it that way. And I feel like if as long as we don't let those outside distractions like the media and politics and all that other stuff get too involved in our lives and embrace nature, we we can flourish much better.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. So
yeah.
that's the direction I've always been attracted to from the beginning of this experience, and even before that in my life. It's just like I said, kind of going into things that are just out there,
Yeah.
things that are outside of the box.
Yeah. So before we kind of dive into, how you do it, what are the types of things that you see and experience? And, yeah, let's just start with that question. I think that's probably best to kind of start with that.
Yeah, well, as we're talking about the daytime, it's always been this form which I call an anomaly. Is basically a psychically controlled hyperdimensional object or form that is really. I'm quoting somebody else now, and I wish I had his name. Um, he called it a metaform, or a meta object rather, a
Okay.
meta object, and this has all kind of implications in quantum science and different esoteric aspects, different kind of translational things. I've seen things like these anomaloon forms, which I call them that because basically that's the bulk of what I see is these things that come and they manifest as balloon shapes. They might be single, they might be clustered, like a group of balloons. They often have very bizarre characteristic qualities and even can defy the wind and defy just the ability to stay afloat because they're not necessarily in regular inflated form like a balloon would be. So balloons of all sorts, balloon shapes of all sorts. And sometimes they'll be singles, sometimes they'll be multiples. And I've had some very, very interesting manifestation times. Sometimes it'll just be I'm looking around in the sky. Well, that's the majority. I'll be looking around in the sky until I finally spot it. But sometimes I'll walk out and it'll be there right when I look up. Or
It's
sometimes
amazing how that
I'll
works out, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Or sometimes, a very few times, I've looked and right in the space where I look, I actually see it materialize. Um,
Yeah, and I think it's one of the things I try to do is, concentrate on a certain area. And, it doesn't always work cuz I'm always still scanning the sky, but um more often than not, if I'm concentrating on an area, something will appear there,
hmm
in due time, you know?
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah, it's amazing. And then like you said, sometimes you're thinking about it like inside before you even walk out the door. Sometimes you're not even thinking about it, but maybe you're just planning to go outside and start doing it, and all of a sudden, boom, you walk into something. And, like
yes,
instantly, the second you walk out the door, there's no need to, go through the
yes,
whole thing to try and call it in, and should we say?
exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of their behavioral aspect, and the appearance though is basically the balloon. Why I call it the anomaloon is because that is typically what I will see in a balloon form of some shape or another, of some type or another.
Okay, what I'm
Sometimes
gonna
there's
do, I'm just while you're talking, I'm just gonna throw up a quick image so people can see it. But feel free to go ahead. This is just a collaboration of images that you put on your channel.
okay,
So,
yeah.
okay.
Um, and sometimes they look so interestingly contorted that you wonder. It makes me think a couple of things. Like sometimes the balloon will look like it shouldn't actually be in the air. It'll look like the refuge of a fallen balloon, a balloon that's partially deflated,
Mm-hmm.
which is very interesting to me because then I start thinking, well, if the balloon serves as a decoy, right? Which one might think using logic, right? Why would a UFO, why would a being, or why would a ship come looking like a balloon? Well, perhaps that's a disguise,
Yeah,
so that
a
it's,
cloaking. Yeah,
yeah,
yep.
a
That's the
cloaking or
first thing what you would start to think. Yep.
a mimicking. But then when you see how some of them are so elaborate and they're not modest, there's some are very flamboyant, and um, you'll see a cluster with another kind of crunched up one under it,
Yeah.
and then tethered to that there's another hanging one under that, and just like tangled up. And so why would it look so obviously strange from the view from the ground, where you can almost not identify it as a balloon cluster? It actually looks like something odd to catch your eye, you know. So that's what's
Absolutely.
really strange. Is there's another dichotomy there, of something that doesn't add up. Just doesn't add up if you're thinking about mimicry, something trying to mimic a balloon for the sake of being incognito, or
For
it
sure.
just,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
it gets you thinking about all the possibilities about what it is and what it's doing, how, if it's cloaking, if it's not, and then of course then you start, involving the consciousness aspect to it, and it just throws everything out the door of what you possibly think it could be.
well, what you just said, it may be the crux of the whole thing,
Mm.
couldn't it? You know,
Mm-hmm.
that this is a new way of learning. It's teaching us through experience
Yeah,
to accept and to be just in the fact that we process these experiences and use our imagination, use our intuition. You know, using those faculties, I think, is a new way of learning. It's actually transformative for us and
yeah,
necessary in this time. I think that these kind of thoughts are supposed to lead us, if we receive them that way, into a higher state of being. You know,
yeah,
something that's much more sensitive uh, to reality.
for sure. So have you ever thought of a certain shape or style and see it manifest or present
A couple
itself?
couple times there was something like that. I remember one time I was on the phone with a woman. She was telling me about gold, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then I went out after that feeling very good, and I saw a cluster of gold balloons.
Oh, wow. Wow.
That was interesting. And then
Yeah.
there was another one. I was, for a little while, I was doing videos. I was making videos, editing videos for a friend who did this. His name is Jay Fig, and he's in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
He does this from an apartment building in New York, in Manhattan. Okay, and they come in the in the build around the buildings. You know, in the very like city environment, you see them coming in. And he did one, and well, I was doing the videos for him, and he I kind of got lost off track. What was the question again?
Basically, if you had been able to, think of a certain
Ah,
style and saw it either
yes.
manifest or present itself.
Yes, and so he was sharing the videos with me, and he had one that was, it looked like a bunch of black balloons in a
Okay.
cluster. And that very day, I just went out because, I don't know, I just was like, man, that was a really cool video. And Jay Fig was on my mind, and I'm outside, and there was a black cluster that came by, almost identical to the one that he saw. And I haven't seen one
Wow.
since. Haven't seen a black one since. Just that day when I was thinking about his black cluster, the black cluster came to me.
Wow.
Um,
That's awesome. That's incredible. So I know that you had met, I believe it was Dr. Joseph Burks, right? Who was initially with, in the very beginning, with Stephen Greer. And we've spoke at length on Stephen Greer, and there's probably no real reason to go much into that. But as far as Joseph Burks go, what was did you I forgot, did you meet him or did you learn
yeah.
off of him? Yeah, you did, right? So
Yeah.
so how did that all come about, and did anything he say help you, and is there anything you can maybe touch on that as far
Well,
as his work?
well, sure. He that goes back to that time of synchronicity in the first month of my experience. I was connecting with people in ways that were leading me uh, to places I needed to be to get to the answers of the question of consciousness.
Yeah.
And within a month, I was at the doorstep of one Ray Hernandez, who was the co-founder of the organization called Free, Dr. Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial and Extraordinary Experiences. So I felt like, okay, that's very fortuitous for me because this is definitely in the direction that I want to go. You know, it seems like a perfect vessel of knowledge for me to check out and get some answers. And became very close with Ray, although, you know, my meeting with him was complex because he had had some very dynamic experience. Wasn't about summoning. I'm talking about what is referred to as a prime experience, or, you know, having something come into your house, you know, and you interact with it. He had that, which propelled him into creating the organization. And then, you know, he just, one after the other, he was telling me, man, I went to this place and I met this person that, you know, just out in general public meeting, all these synchronicities were happening to him. But he was meeting these people that would be big presenters, that would come to be big presenters in terms of having really dynamic experience. So we
Interesting.
we were hanging out because he lived about just a half a mile from my house.
And I thought that synchronicity, you want to maybe kind of, I mean, I know you just kind of told a little bit about it. You want to kind of explain, like, just the synchronicity part of, like, how when you were getting into it, you found out he lived that close to you. I mean, it just blows my mind.
It was crazy because, you know, I was with a friend and she showed me a picture of somebody she used to date, and we were clearing out her storage, and I was like, oh, I don't know. I remember the picture, but I don't know. And then lo and behold, this same picture shows up in the profile of the person that she had been saying she had been with. It came up on my Facebook because I shared a comment with this person based on some kind of subject matter like consciousness or UFOs. I just don't remember, and I didn't screenshot the moment, but I looked at it and I'm like, that's the same person. It was like, how could that be? You know, just within a day or two. And then I found out that he lived close to me, so I went over his house. He was really into Sasquatch of all things, and I actually went in that direction too and had some experiences there, if you believe that. But that we'll save that for a little later.
Yeah, the weird thing is with, you know, I think the whole Sasquatch thing, I mean, I don't know, at least from what I can tell, I've only had 2 small experiences that I've captured. And, you know, they just look like little interdimensional or, you know, holographic things. To me, they don't look physical, but they resemble what you would consider a Bigfoot, but the ones I saw were small, almost like, I mean, and again, like, I've never been huge in the Bigfoot, but I've looked into it and thought it was interesting. But the 2 things I've captured were just when I was using a filter on my camera, and it was weird because I had gotten I had seen a bush, and the center of the bush only was the leaves were spinning rapidly, like crazy. And I was like, that looks so weird. So I just took the camera. I didn't see anything. Then I threw the filter on it, and then all of a sudden, boom, it showed itself. I wish if I thought we were going to talk about this, I'd present the picture. At some point I will. But that's, I mean, again, I'm not as well versed in the whole Bigfoot thing, and but I'd love to hear what you have to add on that at some point. You know, now or later, that's fine.
Yeah, we could go into that, but I'll just finish by continuing. He basically told me about Ray, and you know, within a day or two, I was there because he had told me that Ray needed help with videography, and I was, all new with my video. I mean, I invested in it actually took me a year to get a video camera and do any video recording. I had about 8 or 9 months of experiences that never were recorded in my first
Oh, wow.
year. Yeah. Um, but I had a camera eventually to work with, to help Ray out and doing some of the interviews that he wanted to do for his organization.
Okay.
And eventually we put on 2 events in Miami, and the first event did have Dr. Burks. So we interviewed Dr. Burks in a home setting, and we also filmed him at the conference. And I was just impressed. I was impressed by his kind of his life story, his adult life story. And he had been an activist back in the 60s, and just had done a lot of issues working with social justice that was compelling. And he had told his story about his early 90s work with Dr. Greer, and how they were kind of pioneering, at least in in America, they were pioneering summoning, contact activism.
Nice.
Back then, and it was really interesting because he stood out more than the other guests to me.
Do you know what year Dr. Burks had started his involvement with Greer, and then when they separated? Do you have any? I think it was in the 90s, right?
Yeah, it was early. He talks about a lot of the pinnacle events happening in '92, so probably around '90 they may have met.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but his presentation was great, and I was really moved by it because his presentation was specifically about summoning. The other presentations were seemed to be more about prime contactee experience, meetings with aliens and stuff. But his was interesting, and I got right after the event, right after, I got deathly ill. I just got really, really sick. Like I caught a flu, and it was a heavy flu, and it was just hitting me hard. I mean, it was like one day after the event. And he had talked about healing, and he had talked about summoning and getting affirmations in the sky for some of the things he was trying to achieve. And I just went out on that tip. I went out at night, and I said, hey, if you're able to heal me, if you're able to give me healing for this right now, I would really appreciate it. Show me a flash. And a flash appeared in the sky, just one, like a camera flash. And like I followed Dr. Burke's example, because he asked for a confirmation after that. So I did the same. I said, can you give me one more to confirm that I actually saw what I think I saw? And I got another one.
Isn't it awesome how it works out that way? I love that, because that's just a way of getting that confirmation, that small confirmation that, okay, everything's going,
it's direct.
It's cool. It's like I'm not losing my mind, and everything's, seems on the up and up here.
Exactly. It feels very direct, feels very personal. And, in that little few moments that I was receiving this, I noticed just a few moments afterwards that my symptoms had subsided.
Wow.
All of a sudden I didn't feel feverish. I didn't feel headachy. I didn't feel congested. I had all of those things. It was very, very cool. And then I kind of thought about it. Well, is that psychosomatic? Or is that somehow more dynamic than just mere psychosomatic? Is it dynamically psychosomatic in the sense that there's a dual consciousness interaction happening here?
That's a deep question you got going on there. It's like, which one is it? Yep.
Right, but I definitely feel it's not that it cured me because I still was under the weather for another day or two, but
Mm.
it was definitely something that happened in that moment too. Another one of these teaching moments, perhaps, where we are learning that we are powerful and we can create experience on
Yeah,
a
I mean, I
meta.
think we have the power to manipulate and mess with this reality in certain ways.
And
And,
so,
it applies to our bodies as well. I mean,
y-
Reiki's legit. I know Reiki's legit. Um, and, most of the people probably listening know that too. But, um, we have these strange abilities that when we throw our intention all the way into it and our consciousness, however we want to refer to it, we have the abilities to do some weird things that we grew up thinking were complete bull, So,
mhm.
you know, that's kind of the way I look at it. It's a,
Yeah, and
it's
yet it's a
amazing.
very it's amazing and it's a very humbling thought. I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
I'm here as your guest, but I really don't claim to have many answers to anything. Really,
Same with
I
me,
don't.
man.
I
Same
have
here.
examples, I have testimony, but answers are I'm hard pressed to get make a
Yeah,
lot of
because
sense out of this.
answers can be so subjective to everyone's personal experience and how they are
Absolutely,
perceiving things.
that's right.
And we, that's why for me what I try to do is always look for the trends. I'll be honest, when I was in the thick of the whole CE5 thing and getting massive results, when I would see footage like you have with the balloons, I
Hmm.
would laugh my ass off. I'd be like, ha ha ha, look at this bullshit. And seriously, and now I look back on it and I say, wow, I was so ignorant to think that these things can't actually exist. I mean, and even then, I was still wide open on the consciousness thing and how we can manipulate and do things with reality. But for some reason, I just thought that all the people that were doing these balloon things were just trolls. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
sorry, that's just the way I thought of it. But hey, again, we live and learn, and we just have to be open minded that these things can happen and all sorts of weird things can occur in our lives that we, again, like I said earlier, we had kind of been conditioned to think can't happen or
right.
is weird, and or like you've got a mental thing going on if you think this way. And that is
Yes.
and to me that's the most egregious part of all of this, because we really should be free to, if we had that freedom as children into adulthood, to have the type of thinking that you and I have right now and most of the people listening right now, then we would be able to, who knows where we would be, with
Yeah.
our expansion and interaction with this realm in and of itself.
That's right. That's right. But I try not to get anxious about that kind of
No.
thought
Yeah.
because everything is everything and everything is in some kind of order, I believe, the way it's just kind of supposed to.
Yeah.
I do think that it's great. It's really great to have experiences like this, to be able to share them and to just realize that we're more powerful, and that the way we interact and the way consciousness works is something that um, it sustains us as it is part of us. It also sustains us in a way because we have some kind of we have some kind of connection that is uh, you could say automatic,
Hmm.
and in the sense that it is intrinsic to our nature as beings that have to cooperate, have to coexist.
Absolutely.
It'll work. It'll keep working.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah,
And we if we weren't evolving and learning as we went along in this experience here, then what would it really be? I mean, I guess, that's kind of a big question too. We're here in some fashion to learn and grow, have
Yes,
our souls expand and gain greater knowledge.
and
Doesn't
and
matter that it was, delayed a little bit, but we
right,
got there, and that's the most important part.
right. Um, there were things that kind of enforced our limitation mind to just operate on one level, but well, we're gaining, and things are are changing in the world around us, and I think this is just another tool for us to help us to just to gear ourselves for the kind of changes that
Hmm.
might be coming. It's interesting when there's to receive skepticism, because this also has given me a kind of sympathy for skeptics. It's not like I have to. I feel like it's so inexplicable that I understand the
Yeah.
skepticism around it,
Abs-
which
absolutely.
helps me to kind of comfort that skepticism when I'm confronted with them by just giving the facts. That's all I have, and
Yeah.
it's all we can do in our humility is just to say, "Hey, I can't explain it, but I can tell you things about it."
Mm-hmm.
And because and I used to think at the beginning of my experience, I used to have this real ambition to, based on the thought that the more people that do this, the greater and sooner our timeline will change into something with, massive possibilities. Like
Mm-hmm.
I felt like this could possibly go viral as something that's being posted online. You never know.
Yeah,
And
no, you don't. And, honestly, with today's time, you really don't know what it's. I mean, I think, honestly, I mean, I said this earlier, but I really think we are on a, a some sort of course for a major change here, and I do think it could be for the better. It seems a little weird right now, but if we don't have that positive outlook on what could be and
mhm.
the change that we want to see, then more than likely it's not going to happen. Because if anything, we have proven just by even the small thing that you and I do is
Mhm.
that we have the ability to manipulate and work with this reality. So if as a collective we have an immense power, and all it takes is just a little drop in the bucket, and that
Mhm.
if we shift that consciousness, and the realm has that ability to suck that in and change the course, that's all we need.
Mhm.
That's it.
And we can still maintain as a species our moral objectivity,
Mm-hmm.
to live and grow with each other and not have to sacrifice our kind of meta-conscious integrity, where that which is very expressive and artistic too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an artist, I'm a musician, and I'm a visual artist. And to me, that also is something that has helped me in this whole kind of self-realization process that this phenomena brings, because I do consider this an art in a way. Um,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
you know what
I
I'm saying?
agree.
It's we're expressing ourselves. We're freestyling,
Yeah, that's a great way
and,
to put it.
and there's a lot of creativity that comes from that. It's
For
very,
sure.
very helpful to our consciousness direction.
Absolutely. So what I wanted to do is just play. I'd like to play some videos for the audience listening tonight, and on
Sure.
the replay of some of the
Okay.
stuff that you captured. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna play, short clips, and then there's a few longer ones, and then we'll kind of come in and discuss them a little bit, so people kind of have a grasp as to the level of what's going on. And just so you know, again, we're talking with Sky Family Connector, and that's the YouTube channel. It's Jayta Rhedman, and I highly recommend going over to subscribe to him. he also has a documentary that is out, and as well at which is called Sky with Diamonds 2019 UFO documentary of a different kind. So right now I'm just going to play about, I think we're going to do probably about 5 or 6 minutes of, or maybe a little bit longer, maybe about 7 minutes of this, and then we're going to jump back in, talk a little bit more, and we're going to kind of periodically go through some other videos as well. So this is from the Sky with Diamonds 2019 UFO documentary. I apologize for not having the links in the description at this moment, but as soon as we conclude, I will be sure to include all 5 links of every video that we're going to be going over tonight. So Jayta, just sit tight, and we're going to pop up these videos really quick, or one of these videos from your documentary really quick. Let's see. Okay. Just bear with me, guys, while I pop this up for us. And okay.
Compared to that which appears in the day skies, and can positively affect our physiology.
There we go.
To segue on to the next section that exclusively deals with the look of daytime manifestations, I'll point out that there is a stark difference between what appears in a dark evening sky compared to that which appears in the day skies. These night lights are what I refer to as starships, for the simple fact that they most often look like moving stars. I was able pretty quickly to rule out the idea that these are standard aircraft by their shape and silent procession. Nor are they satellites. Their relative velocity, comparingly, as calculable using only an estimate from ground to sky visual tracking, is much too fast, and that's not even to mention their other distinguishing behaviors, such as previously mentioned blinking as a form of communication, fading in and out, bright pulsing, otherwise referred to as power-ups by some, streaking or zigzagging, or what I like to call hyper-jumping. And by the way, I now believe I have established a basis to question the explanation of meteors or quote-unquote shooting stars. And they even make organized formations, as did appear to me one evening, which I created here using Photoshop. A tight row of 10 or so of these lights were moving in a straight line perpendicular to the direction of travel, then dispersed apart, then faded out. Now let's talk about a most enigmatic nature to these human-initiated telepathic contact events. It's what appears as familiar man-made objects, which hasn't got much attention in ufology at all. Now, what I'm showing here in this swatch of pics are some of the more spectacular forms. However, the object I tend to see a lot in the daytime is the balloon type, or what I like to call anomaloons. And since 2017, I've had well over 100 incidental and self-initiated sightings of these objects. Now this is ironic to me. The fact that anyone who has been interested in the ufology field knows that the standard and cliché government cover-up story is they are weather balloons. Just great. Now talking about this with even a speck of credibility just got a lot harder. But before anyone wants to say, he must be standing near a balloon factory, or he must live by some balloon fanatics who just incessantly release them on a daily basis. There are several evidences beyond those simple presumptions, some based on statistical analysis of the numbers and response time, some on physical attribute and behavior. But be assured, none of the down-to-earth explanations stand up in light of the events as I and others have experienced them. You think, okay, the premise makes sense. A balloon decoy makes good camouflage. But then you get other more conspicuous things, like bags that come over at 2,000 feet and stop and remain stationary mid-air. And we find these shapes are often general, not exact. This was taken by a man in Australia doing contact research, You can clearly see here in this balloon cluster what appears to be balloons that are fused together. And I've also seen other deformations like damaged or misshapen balloons. All of these items, whether it be a balloon or a fabric or plastic bag, move in a way that blatantly defy the wind and space around them, making it obvious that some sentience is on display. So the good researcher begs the question, why? If the goal is to remain low-key, why come as anything else than a balloon? Perhaps, as one channeled ET session had explained, there is a strategy or program of instilling plausible deniability into human consciousness for the sake of easing humans into the reality of their presence. I initially thought maybe these were some sky being or craft that can shapeshift into these objects. From this idea, I've heard a lot of people using the terms morph and mimic. One example I heard likens these to octopus that can change to blend with their surroundings to support the concept of organic mimicry. However, my opinion has changed over time. To me, there is simply not enough information to draw the conclusion that these are some kind of advanced, shape-shifting sky critter. It's not hard to understand why someone would reach that determination, with such examples of Earth creatures being the closest and only available reference to such a thing. To see the damaged or misshapen quality they often display could reasonably be interpreted as general mimicry, like the qualities one can observe from some Earth creatures, or the said intelligent or controlled movements they make, which one could easily imagine would be made by a living creature. Now remember what I said before about being a different instrument in a different band and genre as a metaphor that distinguishes the select prime contactee and the sky anomaly contact practitioner? This is the point where I would again mention that distinction that puts people like myself and other modern research pioneers of this activity in a position which requires more speculation about the source that produces such anomalies, simply because, at least in my case, the nature of these non-human intelligent to human contacts thus far have not included direct communication. Not having access to the mind of this intel, one may very well be tempted on the surface to also conclude that someone or something is seriously messing with us, like an ET trickster out there having some laughs at our expense, or a playful species of incredibly advanced beings. I do not believe that we humans have reached this level of technological ability, unless perhaps they represent some human mechanism from the future. It's not until you become dumbfounded like this that you look for crazy answers that dissolve the pathways of logic and reason. But who's to say that these answers are not right? Outlandish things may have outlandish natures.
Okay, so basically what we kind of just went over was the segment in your documentary around I think the 22-minute mark. And what it kind of goes over is the kind of unbelievable aspect to all of this, where we are where the balloons kind of are part of this, and that we have to set our assumptions aside as to what we think is kind of going on, and accept that there are, it's kind of an open book.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right, so I got that. So let me just so that was kind of basically what we did with that. I'm just trying to. Okay, there we go. We got the video back up. I apologize, everybody. So that kind of goes to what we were just previously discussing. So I wanted to kind of give that to the audience so they could kind of see where you were coming from and relate to it in your own words. So, what do you think about the sociological impact of people figuring this out and its possible effect, like a cascade effect of knowing this information and why it's because I think we probably both can agree that this information probably was held back from the public for as long as possible and was dripped out, you know, with a control aspect to it. Do you think that the sociological impact on society could potentially disrupt the powers that shouldn't be?
Yeah, I mean that's really to be seen, isn't it? It's it's hard to contend with just as an individual to try to grapple with this and try to make sense of it in our way of thinking, that we've been trained. And then to think of it in terms of what that would manifest for us as a society on a groupthink kind of level. It's just hard to imagine, but the possibilities it's nice to imagine the possibilities, because you tend to get that notion, right, that this could really topple a lot of the structures, the infrastructures that have kept us in place and docile, and all these other kind of limitation modalities that we've been holding on to for so long.
Yeah, I think if this type of a thing were to occur, especially because we're gonna get into and the next thing we discuss is kind of how to do it and what to do, and a big part of it is opening up your heart and expressing love and oneness to the world. So can you maybe touch upon that, and let's kind of discuss how we summon these things and what the really basic methods are that can achieve this. And when we kind of are discussing that, I think this kind of goes back to what we just talked about, that if the cat were to get out of the bag, so to say, then I would find it couldn't be anything but positive. But again, that's just my opinion. Who knows? We don't know. But to me, it seems like if this were to be a widespread thing, it would probably be a very positive thing for humanity, just based on the fact that it comes from love, and that oneness connection with the universe and the realm itself.
Yes, just based on that. I mean, that notion carries very deep into our subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
Way back. There's always been this human devotion to trying to figure out what it's all about. And so us now getting that same impulse in our current age and having this experience to kind of help us along with those ideas is, I mean, just it stupefies the mind to really think of the possibilities. It's just boundless in which direction it could go and what kind of impact it can have. Just it's. But I love it. I love to ponder those things, because I think in pondering them, we're creating them in a way.
Exactly.
The excitement that it builds in us is not wasted energy. That excitement is it's part of the whole thing about our meta abilities of consciousness, that we can create reality. It's about our intention. It's about imagination, excitement, or the inspiration to manifest. It just it works on subtle levels, and yet some of these things can be traceable when we see over certain period of time. We can see changes happening through society. I found that it was interesting when I had my first experience. I think it was the same year, at the end of the year. It was all of a sudden the Pentagon or the Navy released these UFO videos. It's in the New York Times, and I'm like, wow, is this the age of this, that I just happen to come in at this moment where things are hot, so to speak?
Yeah, I often ask that question too, man. Like, are we here at a certain time for a reason? Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And even our again, to our our abilities. Thinking about the work of Rupert Sheldrake rather.
Yeah.
He's talking about the morphogenetic field and how, this is a concept whereby one mind, one consciousness apparatus, and doing one thing can make it easier and make it more happen across the world. Like, it's just this morphogenetic. Actually, your genes are connected to every other atom and every other gene expression on this meta level, and we duplicate energy, and we duplicate intent. The most powerful use of our imagination, the most sublime ideas, they seem to break the barriers, and they seem to be the areas, the kind of psychedelic areas that we need to actually be in to create change. It's not like we can do it by rational modes of thinking, rational models, the way we naturally reason. It seems to be that we have to kind of take away that enforcement, that entrainment of our mind, and get into just a dreamlike state of seeing reality. It's hard to fathom, right? It's hard. How could we run a society that way if everybody's tripping, But perhaps there is something to that, that shamanic kind of way, that is a key here too.
Yeah, I mean, one of the aspects to all of this, that I found to work, it's not only the love part or the oneness connection with the universe and the realm, but it also has to kind of when you do this, if you kind of revert to letting yourself completely go, and running with it. You add the love, you add the oneness, and then you almost kind of add that childness factor to it. It seems to just love that, like the phenomenon. It really seems to love that childish
100%.
nature.
That's such an important observation there. That is really a big one, isn't it? I mean, I've felt that very deeply.
Now, one thing that I had mentioned to you about the butterfly incident, and I'll go into that in a little bit, but another incident, I told you I have this weird connection with butterflies and birds, which you have as well, and just clouds, obviously. But there was one time I was in my front yard and just let myself completely go, and I found myself chasing a butterfly around, like when I would be a kid, and you know what? That was a day that I had massive amounts of contact and just anomalies flying all over the place and all sorts of weird happenings. And
look at
that. I mean, we could sit here and say, oh, that's stupid, or it's this or it's that, but you know what? It works. If you when we're gonna start going into your methods, and we kind of use the same thing. This is one of them. It works. It sounds woo woo.
Absolutely.
But it is what it is. It works.
It is what it is. I think you're kind of speaking to my last point too, about being psychedelic in your impressions of the world, in your looseness. I don't know if you've ever done psychedelics.
Oh, I've done too many. Yeah.
Okay, so that entering into those states, you're uninhibited, really, and that uninhibitedness is a key. It's a key to letting. It's that letting go that you were talking about.
100%, man. 100%. So, so why don't you kind of just give us a brief rundown of what you do to either before you go outside or when you're about to go outside and do it. You know, I mean, we kind of touched on it, but you know, kind of just maybe give us a rundown of your methods that you use to basically interact with the anomalies in the in our skies.
Well, you know, the the general way I said to be is to be excited. If you don't feel excitement, I don't think you're going to be able to manifest. You have to be excited, and from that point, really, you can freestyle and do anything you want, because the way I was shown, like I said, from Robert Bingham's video, was so simple. I mean, it was literally
I know.
step 1, 2, 3, 4. Go outside, relax, look into the sky, concentrate on the sky, and call and ask for an object to appear.
Yeah.
And that's it. And one can imagine, you know, you can embellish on that based on your creativity, whatever you'd like to do. If you want to sing, I've sang before.
Same here.
To them, and that's happened. If you want to dance, I've danced before, and it's happened. If you want to, I mean, all kind of things can come up. Just keeping it creative, so that the actual process is very, very simple. And you'll find that once you do it a few times, you'll get these incidental initiations, whereby it just, you'll walk outside and it's already there waiting for you, or things like that. Sometimes I'd be on the phone outside, and just because I was on the phone, I was looking up as I was on the phone, but I wasn't. I was concentrating on the conversation on the phone. I wasn't really concentrating on this guy, and yet it would show up. And that happened several times.
Same here. Yeah.
Several times. So very interesting. But the process is wide variety, and I just like to tell people that it's a free form process.
It's kind of like, again, it's all about, I think really it's all about letting go. And just going with the flow. And not
thinking too hard.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
That's it. So I don't have much to say
I know
about that.
Yeah. I figured this was kind of the response I was going to get, but that's all right.
I want people to think, what would you do if you wanted to see something in the sky and you could call it? What would you do? How would you call it? Just do it the way you would do it, you know?
Yep.
If you got manners, I'm sure everything will work out.
Yeah, I mean, you know, kind of my suggestion is, like we were saying, we've got to just let ourselves go. And I really think that if we come from that love aspect, it tends to really pay. And if you come from the childish factor as well, that really plays a big part as well. I mean, I'm sure there's all, even like there's probably a laundry list of other weird ways that we haven't even thought of or experienced that can do this as well. But it's all about, in the end, I think the base of it is not overthinking and just letting yourself go. And I think for those that might find difficulty in this, do a small, even if it's a short meditation. Do a short meditation on it before you walk outside, or do the meditation outside if you've got some time, or if it's in the summer, right, like it is right now for us, it's really hot, do a short meditation where you're letting yourself go, and then walk outside and kind of continue that with your eyes open if you can, or maybe even sit down on a chair in the backyard or in the front yard and let yourself go with that meditation and say, I would like to have a peaceful, loving contact with, beings of a friendly nature who would like to connect with me of their own free will. And then you could kind of sometimes stare in a certain area in the sky, and sometimes they'll appear there. A lot of times they'll appear there, but then sometimes you'll get cues to look in a certain area, like I had mentioned earlier with you, and I know you've had these experiences when you kind of listen to nature. Like for me, it's birds. For you, it's birds a lot as well. I find that birds really help me facilitate these experiences. They're like almost a conduit to say, hey, wake up, look over here. Or if they're going crazy, look everywhere. Sometimes I'll see them all flying in certain directions. And then so that says to me, maybe look in that direction. And a lot of times I'll see something. Or maybe they'll be screaming, ridiculous, screams. And I'll look in the sky, look around, and boom, like clockwork, something will appear or something weird will start happening. And it sounds weird and it sounds simple, but that's what it is. I mean, it is.
I can confirm
simple.
it.
Yeah.
I can confirm it. And by the way, the very last video I posted, dated yesterday, has that exact example. I was standing outside with my partner, and me and her are standing out there, and she was talking about something that she had been watching inside. She wasn't very focused. So she was talking to me, so I wasn't in focus. And there were mosquitoes, and it was just like, let's go in. It's too hot right now, mosquitoes. I'm not feeling connected. I said that to her. And right when I said it to her, there was one bird started sounding off, another bird sounded off. We got parrots around here. They flew over and were sounding off. And then this frog, a tree frog, started really getting loud, and I was like, she was like, wow, isn't that interesting how they all start making noise together? And I said, yeah. And I looked up, boom.
Wow.
Yeah, there's an object,
There it is, right?
And I had just finished saying that I don't feel connected.
Yeah,
and I don't feel connected.
And then it was just, nature's or the realm's way of just throwing it right in your face.
Yeah. And it was a psychic nudge, too, because as she said, isn't it interesting how they all started together? Well, yes, and my mind automatically gets tripped by that into this far out realm. It's not, it's weird, yes, but it's phenomenological.
You know what's weird is that the weird part about what you just said is that it's like you're almost overthinking it, and yet it still came. It's like you're not overthinking it, but you're involving yourself in doubt, and yet it's still delivered.
Still delivered.
Yeah. So to me, like that's just that's a funny one. I like that one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I know some of the people listening right now might be like, oh, these guys are nutso, but just give it a try. And I was looking at a comment by a longtime subscriber and a buddy of mine, Tinfoil Hatter. He says it might take a long time to get anywhere, so to speak, for someone like me. And bro, no, I'm telling you, dude, just give it a go. Just go outside, let yourself go, and you heard the weird, everything sounds, rainbows and unicorns, but that's what it is. I mean, it's really, it's so simple, and you can go out and I know you're, Tinfoil Hatter, you're a big guy with big into UFOs, so give it a shot, man. Give it a shot. Just let yourself go. Don't, it's the best thing to do, like we were saying, is just come from a place of love, oneness. And, if you could connect with that inner child in yourself, just give it a shot. Do some breathing exercises, do those breathing exercises for 5 or 10 minutes, then walk outside if it's too hot, or if you're out, or if you can go outside and do those breathing exercises, you can do it, man. I'm telling you, everyone. I think everyone can do this. I mean, short of someone having, maybe some sort of really maybe like a some sort of deficiency, where they're not capable of doing something like that. But even then, like, if there's some sort of mental block or illness that could possibly get in the way, maybe that can do it. But in all honesty, I think everyone has the capability. Because even then, like, I seriously think anyone, even in some sort of odd state that isn't, quote, normal, can still experience this if they just let go. And I know you can do it, Tinfoil Hatter. I know you can, man. Just give it a shot, bro.
Can you give me about half a minute here?
Yeah, we can do. We could take a 5-minute break. That's sometimes okay. I do that because we still have a little ways to go. And so how about we take a 5-minute break, and we'll be right back with you guys. You're listening to Forever Conscious Research Channel. Well, I apologize to cut you off, Jayta. I have to redo that because my mic was muted. Okay. So welcome back, everybody. So before we touch upon the New Mexico dust storm that you experienced, Jayta, there was a quote in your documentary by Trevor James Constable that went as follows: "There is something fundamentally wrong with a mode of scientific cognition that can neither face nor cope with the eruption of the cosmic mainstream into consciousness, leaving the field to amateurs like myself." And that's a quote from the book Sky Creatures, Living UFOs. And I'd like to ask you, in relation to his work, it seemed like he evolved from the mainstream narrative of what we all thought or think UFOs are, and kind of in the end realized that it really boiled down to the consciousness aspect, and his work really represents that. And maybe you can touch upon that before we go into the New Mexico dust storm experience that you had.
Yeah, he was actually doing his work in the late 50s. So he was, I don't know how much he had ventured from there wasn't really even a mainstream at that time. It was such a very fringe thing. But he was doing his stuff quietly, pretty much an unknown at that time, and up until this time. But I was just inspired from the get-go by the idea of living UFOs and something organic taking place, because the whole aspect of psychic connection that would manifest an object it just seemed like being an organic process. It seemed like there's a possibility that this is a being, an intelligence itself in the sky that's presenting itself to me. This is, again, before I had my camera, before I was able to really examine what was going on. I would just see these things in the sky that I presumed were creatures of some sort,
Yeah, absolutely.
Even when I first saw the Anomaly or the balloon videos, they're not quite a balloon. Perhaps it was some kind of mimicry going on, organic mimicry. But like you could say, Trevor Constable evolved. I could say I evolved a little too, because I kind of got away from that a little bit, that idea that this is a creature that is mimicking a balloon with some kind of abilities, like you might see chameleons or octopus or those kind of things mimicking their environment to kind of be hidden. That's some of the explanations I had seen out there, and a lot of the people who had taken videos were stating that they believe this to be the balloon to be a mimicry of a balloon.
Okay.
In other words, it was something else that was transforming itself, shape-shifting into a balloon.
It's just the balloon aspect of this all just still even now is just it's mind numbing to me.
Yeah,
I mean I could talk about this all day at
yeah.
how
There's
amazing it is. You know.
so many little micro details that you get to see after so long of doing it. There's
Hmm.
so many little things I could touch on that are just minute details, but
Hmm.
they add something to it. They're
Hmm.
not details for no reason. They have to have some purpose why they manifest that way.
Yeah, something I noticed that since you're just talking about minute details, and I was watching a number of your videos this afternoon, and I find that you have similar captures like I do, and what happens is these things these well we'll call them birds, okay? They just whiz by, or like
Right.
they'll whiz up, or they'll. But a lot of times it's like just when you're zooming in on what you want to see, you'll see something whiz by. Not
Yeah.
necessarily like the white anomalies that we usually see, or the any of the standard things. It resembles a bird, and in most
Right.
cases, maybe it is a bird. But it
Right.
just
Just
seems
crossing.
that it seems to happen so much that it makes me question things. What about you on that one? I mean, I was just thinking about that earlier today, and I had to ask you that one.
It's It's honestly been just an on and off experience for me. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
that one's hard, but I have noticed it.
Mm.
So there was a period of time where I was just seeing tons of raptor birds, mostly turkey buzzards down here in South
Okay.
Florida, mixed with a few hawks here and there, different species of hawks, also bald eagles. I was seeing quite a bit.
No, no. See, like with this one, Jada, I'm talking about like when you're filming, and
Hmm.
they kind like it's like I understand what you're saying, but like I'm talking about like when you're watching and like just these things. Basically, they're birds. They whiz by so fast, and I
Hmm.
just happen to I don't know, from maybe it's just a thing that happens with me, but I saw it in about 3 or 4 of your videos today, so I thought maybe it was something you experienced, or maybe like I said, maybe I'm just overthinking it, and it's just a normal bird and not an anomaly, but it just seems to happen when I'm zooming in on something, and they just happen to cross the path of the camera like on a regular basis. Not necessarily like we were kind of saying earlier, like the calling cards of birds that um, more or less seem to appear in a regular,
Maybe
on a
maybe
regular
you
basis.
maybe you were from the avian alien race in a past
Yeah,
life.
yeah. I took a 20 and back trip with Corey Good and David Wilcock.
uh,
All right. Okay. I just thought I threw it out there. I guess I don't know. It's all right. Okay. So how about since we're on the topic of birds, anyways, before I kind of said what I've kind of experienced, why don't you kind of say, again, like the birds that you've been seeing and how you think they relate to your experiences, or maybe predicting experiences, or or as a kind of calling card for seeing anomalies in the sky. Maybe you can touch on that a little bit.
well, if I could refer back to the idea of the meta object, I wish I had the
Mm-hmm.
guy's name who he has a talk and a program actually of examining the UFO phenomena.
Mm-hmm.
But he mentions even the birds, even the an animal or any other kind of externality to the experience can be a meta object in the experience if one
Mm-hmm.
receives it that way. And he mentions the owls experience that this one brother, his name is Mike Cleland, and if one wants to look up any of his work on owls and extraterrestrials, all you have to do is type that in, and his is about the only name that comes up in every search. He's really got a wealth of information, and it involves seeing owls at very synchronistic timings and very significantly relatable ways to some aspect of spirituality or higher dimensionality, you know. So I was interested in those videos.
Yeah, those are interesting for sure.
Very, very interesting.
Yeah, we had a pretty in-depth conversation about that when we talked privately about that.
Yeah, and I remember a couple days where I had watched the videos and went outside and had my own owl experiences. So it was just another aspect of nature responding. But again, it was a bird, and I also had the idea from the get-go of my experience that somehow I was immediately interested in Native American culture. Specifically those who have the star cosmologies that everybody's familiar with, the Hopi, I think, and the Navajo.
Absolutely.
And Lakota. And some of those things really just drew me in and began to kind of transpersonally take in that energy of everything is sacred, you know, this animism that everything has a life, everything is alive. And to see that as a sacred connection. So the birds, when I would see them, they would have that kind of, I would get that kind of feeling in me when I would see them. And that's when, again, that's the psychic impulse, that's the nudge right there of seeing the bird in a certain way. Maybe the bird is circling by itself in a moment where you're in a desire to connect. And that gives you the nudge, that gives you the little confirmation.
That's the way I look at it. It's the nudge. Yep.
Yeah. And so I've had a few of those really with the raptor birds and owls. A couple of really profound ones with owls.
Yeah, and I think I touched upon when we spoke last about, you know, this, not to really sidetrack, but since we're on the topic of owls. My weird experience as a child, but looking back on it, it blows my mind. But at the time, I didn't think anything of it. I grew up in one home as a child until about, I don't know, I want to say maybe 8 or 9, somewhere around that age. And I would walk outside, and even during the day, and, you know, obviously at night too, I would see this really old gray owl. And then my family and I had moved about maybe 2 or 3 miles down the street to a new home. And that gray owl, same gray owl, I walked down a hill, because we kind of had a hill at the bottom of our property. And then there was a bunch of trees. The same exact owl had literally moved within days of us moving into the new house, to the new house. And I always looked at it and I was like, whoa, like, what are the chances? I mean, and you know, I knew it was the same owl. It was the same, you know, I had seen it for years. And to me, looking back on it, it's like maybe that was some sort of sign for, you know, something in the future for me to listen to the material about owls. I mean, you know, that's when you really start overthinking these things and saying, whoa, there's maybe there's some sort of I hate to say it, like a script almost, like or some sort of connection that is embedded in some of us, and it's meant for us to be received later in life, not at the time it's received. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's the
yeah.
only way I
Well,
can say it.
the script feels like a part of the self-realization
Yeah,
process, really,
yeah, yeah.
in that sense. Yeah. It's like it tells you that all of life, all of this experience called life is synchronous. Almost every, just some are happen to be more profound, um, more
Yeah.
direct, and more hit us in the face when
Yeah.
everything can be interconnected.
Yeah,
In our day to
it
day.
hits you in the face when it matters, I guess, is kind of, or when it's supposed to, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why don't we go into the story that you had about the New Mexico dust storm and that whole, not story, but your experience with the plastic bags and how that all unfolded. That's a good one, and I would
Sure.
love the audience to hear that one.
Sure. Well, if I could back up just a little
Oh,
bit,
absolutely. Go ahead.
and I wanted to say this for those out there who would consider this, if they had more kind of something to grab onto in terms of statistics. And I made a little kind of 4-point statistical analysis
Okay.
based on my experiences. And the last point kind of will go segue into that,
Sure.
talk about New
Yeah.
Mexico. So when I look at it, I look at the numbers. So it's really statistically far outside of the probability that one could step outside, project a calling into the sky for an object to appear, and a balloon shows up 9 times out of 10, week after week, month after month, on a nearly daily basis. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, now the second one is the timing. So it's statistically far outside the probability that one could step outside and project a calling to the sky for an object to appear, and a balloon shows up 9 times out of 10 within 10 minutes of the calling, or about a third of the time within 30 seconds of the calling. Okay, so the timing of it. And then the actions and the behavior. So it's also outside probability that one would go outside, project a calling to the sky for an object to appear, and a balloon shows up directly overhead, 9 times out of 10, directly overhead, materialized in the general direction where one's eyes are looking, and often in defiance of the wind trajectory, or have a series of them come one after the other, a few minutes apart, but from different directions. And then finally is location. So it's also the same outside of probability that one could go outside and in any location, be it 1, 10, or 100 miles from one's base, even across multiple state lines, as I've done, and project a calling into the sky, and a balloon appears in the same manner. So
and continuously have these experiences.
Yes, so that was part of my experience going out west. We decided, okay, we're going to have an event at each state line. When we cross the state line, we'll stop and we'll take a break and we'll summon. And at each point, something appeared through the states. I think it was Louisiana, Alabama, Texas, and then into New Mexico. And once we got into New Mexico, there was a nighttime event that happened at a concert that a friend of mine had put on. I was there to take footage of that, and it was like a little festival. It was nice. It was different local musicians and vending booths, and it was just a nice outdoor occasion. So something happened during one of the performances, and I was able to get that. It's a nighttime plasma orb going over us. So that was interesting. And then, I think a day or two after that, me and my partner were in town, and we're at it was a dollar store, and we're in the parking lot getting ready to leave when I'm sitting in the car with her, and I look outside of the window, and I see a what's called a dust devil out there. They call it a dust devil. It's basically a whirlwind forming. A lot of them happen out there in the desert environment, and they can just come out of nowhere, basically, and it'll look like a mini tornado. basically, and so I'm looking at this thing form in the parking lot, and I started seeing like it picking up objects like bags and just looked like debris a little bit, but something about the way they were picking up, I just something looked very odd. I can't put my finger on it now. It's very fleeting. It was momentary, but
Yeah.
It was that psychic nudge.
Yeah, absolutely.
That made me look at these objects very strange, and I just had this feeling to just look up at that point, because I stuck my head out the window of the car and looked straight up, and there were all of these objects in the sky. It was about 5 or 6 of them, and a couple were kind of coming in and out. Just like a couple were kind of flickering in and out, and the others were stationary there. And I was like, that's very interesting, because they weren't part of this whirlwind because they were stationary. And the whirlwind had just quickly formed and pretty much dissipated. It went towards the building and kind of like just collided with the building and was gone. And the debris had settled down in the parking lot. But here were these 5 objects above me, so I just stepped out and got my camera, and we continued to observe that for a few minutes, just the objects sitting there. Zooming in on them, they looked exactly like the debris that had been on the ground. These were more like plastic bag things than they were balloons. So I've seen the plastic bags too here in Miami, but seldom, and not in a long time, like my first year and maybe even into the second year. But haven't seen any this year.
See, what's weird is I experienced more of the plastic bags than the balloon factor and all this. So, we both have different experiences. Or like I see those white, I saw one of your videos earlier today where you have those white spheres almost that just are traveling, kind of slow, and
right, hanging out, moving around,
And I kind of told you about when we spoke, a few weeks back, how I would sit sometimes in my front yard, and I have this light pole, and I would concentrate on the tip of that light pole, and I would get those lights, those spheres that they would come, those white spheres, that would just slowly go by. But I don't mean to interrupt you, but
no,
yeah.
Well, it's interesting. Side note with that is this another summoner named Mr. Anomalous.
Oh yeah, very familiar. Great channel. I highly recommend people check his channel out. I tried to get him on, but
he had one explanation, actually one description in one of his videos that mentioned that you're likely to see more of the plastic bag types in rural or desert areas. And I found that interesting, because I was in the desert area seeing more of the plastic bag types out there. Okay. That happened in my second visit, which was just the end of last year to New Mexico. I went, and I have footage of that too, and those were mostly plastic bags.
Okay.
Until I got deeper into the city, like I went into El Paso and had some balloon occasions there, which was right next door to the more deserty New Mexico. So it was very interesting.
Absolutely.
But the point, I think, too, with that experience that I had, was to show that my idea of a kind of teleportation process that's happening with man-made objects, that these aren't necessarily mimics of an object by an organic creature, as maybe the constable school of thought would determine or interpret. But perhaps it is that these are actually psychically controlled man-made objects that have been kind of hijacked, or they've been commandeered by this intelligence, because they are lightweight objects, can be easily made airborne, and therefore they're kind of perfect. They don't take much energy.
Honestly, I really like that point. I like the whole point that you just made. I'm with you on that one 100%. Yep.
Yeah. So it still doesn't take away from the bizarreness of this
No.
as being, something it's either being very playful, or perhaps it is just utilitarian, meaning that it's just because these are lightweight objects and it wants to use that in the daytime because that's just the best possible way of visually making a connection. I've even thought that perhaps, and this goes off on a tangent a bit. If
Don't
you
worry
want
about
to
it.
go
We're good
in,
at
that, if you want to go in that direction, but perhaps I've thought that there's really been no confirmation, no direct voice, no direct communication between me and this intelligence to inform me the source of it, right? So
Yep.
I'm left guessing,
Yeah,
and so
it's
far
all
I don't
guesses.
really, I don't really have the evidence or the indication that this is anything extraterrestrial.
Oh, me too. I don't think that at
You know,
all.
for
Yeah.
all I know, it could be an earthbound,
Mm-hmm.
what would be what would be classified as ultra terrestrial, something that is of the earth, but it is on a metaphysical level. But it is so seeing, for example, seeing balloons that are mangled reminds me of trash. It reminds me of trash balloons. So what if this has to do with Earth telling us stop polluting? There's trash, showing us plastic bags and these things. Could it be something like that in some kind of very uh,
Yeah, like a message.
a message that from an intelligence that can in no way speak our language, can in no way communicate that way to us. So it has to be something that we receive on a more intuitive level. I don't know. It's just a possibility.
Yeah, no. I think it's definitely a great it's a great thought. I mean, it's because, well, I mean, we can go down the road of what happens with abductees, but I've changed kind of my opinion on that. So I really don't know if I want to really go down that road. But a lot of abductions, talk about saving the biosphere and things like that. And I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yes.
In general, it doesn't matter whether I believe in climate change or not and all that stuff. It just means that, we need to take care of the earth and, our surroundings better. And
Sure.
maybe that's the message, part of the message that we're receiving. But like you said,
Sure.
all we're doing is speculating at this point. We have no clue. And, that's yeah. I mean, I really don't have anything to add beyond that, but
Well, I'm glad to hear some of those reports from the prime contactee community that
me
does
too.
speak of their the occasions where they were given these messages of conservation of the environment and self-sustainability, even different energy types. You have a lot of people in the ufology community that are into Tesla and into free energy source for the reason that has to do with the energy source we're using now is no good. It's simply unsustainable, and it's not working in cooperatively with the planet.
Yeah, and completely unnecessary, because I think we all know, even everyone listening here, that there is alternative technology to electricity and fuel with vehicles, and yet we are kind of stuck with what we got. We're stuck with oil.
And some might see this practice that we do as irrelevant because they may be these kind of ufologists that are looking for those kind of answers, and you may not be able to find that within the context of what we do. I mean, so far as I just don't see an indication of that. This is kind of, I lean more towards some kind of spiritual dimension towards this whole phenomenon than something that's going to give us a hard answer in one direction or another based
Yeah.
on.
I don't know if he was here earlier, and I'll send you his information, maybe tomorrow. He has a channel that goes by the name of Disintegral, and what he does, it's really, I mean, I'm still trying to get a grasp on the entire thing myself, but I've been following him for a few years. He films the sky, and he takes the pictures or the video from the sky. And again, I'm just loosely saying what he does. I could be misinterpreting some of this. So Disintegral, if you're still listening, forgive me. But he basically takes these images and plops them into Photoshop or not Photoshop, some other Adobe software. And what it does is it converts the image into music. And the image creates a clear, you would basically listen to it and say, oh, it's pretty much a composition. I mean, it's really far out there stuff, but he showed me some of it. I've listened to it. I've followed him for a while, and it's legit. And he also shows pictures where he says he intuitively connects with the pictures, and he breaks it down into the raw data format of some sort and turns them into GIFs, and those GIFs end up creating images of just weird entities. And sometimes they'll show entities, sometimes they'll show letters, sometimes, I mean, it's a really wide-ranging thing that he has discovered. And we were in a discussion. Just bear with me 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
We were in a discussion privately the other day, and honestly, when you look at the representations of what he shows, it looks similar to this is a book called The Mysterious Maya on the Mayans, and it looks almost identical. I know I got this thing going on, but I apologize. But it looks very similar to this with the Mayan the Mayan look, you know. And you know, and these types of this type of feel. And so I started taking pictures and sending it to him, and we were kind of blown away at it. I mean, of course, there's really no answers to this, but he suspects that if you know, he had a chance to dig into it a little bit deeper and spend more time on it, that maybe it could provide something, because you know, the Mayans, you know, everything that they did was in tune with the sky, and you know, and the cosmos, should we say, you know, or the stars or the planets, and so when you look at his breakdown of these photos, they look like like what I just showed you on the Mayan book. It's really mind-blowing stuff. But again, I mean, I'm still kind of at the early phase of kind of learning it, and as is he. But he gets this intuitive feeling to connect this data, and it kind of tells him how to place it. And then all of a sudden, boom, you have these weird things popping up, or these patterns popping up. I mean, that's the best way I could describe it. I know I'm not really doing it any justice in a row, but you know, since we're on this topic of all, you know, kind of we're all over the map with this stuff, and we have to admit that we really don't have a firm understanding of a lot of this stuff, and it's just something, you know, that we have to kind of throw out there and consider and maybe look further into. But it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to get any answers, but you know, we're working blind. All of us here are working blind, and we have to accept that. That's all, you know.
Yeah, and if we're like a trying to tune in like an old FM radio, a dial. We're just trying to tune into the channel properly, and it seems like we're getting a lot of evidence, but we got to hit that perfect sweet spot where we are actually able to embody and really understand how this consciousness works.
For sure. So what I'm thinking of right now is what we'll do is I'm going to show a quick anomaly. I don't know if you have the stream up by any chance, but I'm going to show an anomaly that I caught. The one I told you about that over the light pole, and then it went over the house. It's a really short video. It's only, I think, about, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 seconds.
No, I have your image on the screen in front of me.
But then what I'm going to do is just kind of go into one of your videos. It's one of the 10-minute ones, your 3-year compilation.
Okay.
And then what we'll do is we'll come back, kind of talk a little bit more, and then we're going to kind of wrap it up from there. I know we've kind of been going a while, but
sure.
So let's kind of, this is something I was going to put on the channel separately, and I will in the future. But feel free to take a look at this, guys, and let me know your thoughts. If Jada, if you want, I don't know if you have time to maybe open up your YouTube browser and maybe go to my channel while I get this set up, and then you could kind of just see what I'm talking about. I'll because it's such a short clip, I'll repeat it a few times, but it's, pretty much your textbook example of things you've filmed as well.
Okay.
It's nothing really amazing, but it's my kind of, when we were having a discussion last time, we were talking about trying to get these things in closer, and that was when I was doing this particular day. That's what I was concentrating on, is the light pole I had discussed, and kind of sending my energy as the beacon in that light pole to kind of have whatever anomaly present itself, should we say,
Yes.
Okay, so do you happen to have that up by any chance?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So I'm gonna play this probably maybe 2 or 3 times because it's really, really short. But here it is, guys, and then we're gonna pop into Jada's video after that. All right. And it's almost like it appears out of nowhere. But so that's just my short one that I was gonna play here. And now what we're gonna do is head on over to, excuse me, we're gonna head on over to,
that one was cruising.
Yeah, no, it was quick, and I even have a separate video which I didn't queue up that kind of completed its descent into wherever.
Yeah.
So now what we're gonna do is gonna play I like the timing on this video, 10 minutes and 10 seconds. Jada's Sky Family Connector channel, and I highly recommend everyone go and check out his channel and subscribe and hit that bell, because he's got a lot of great content and you can spend quite a bit of time digging through what he's got available. And this video is titled Various Clips 3 Years in Review. So enjoy this. It's a great collaboration that he's put together. Or let's see, where did I put it? There we go. That should do it. Oh, no, that's not it. Just bear with me while I try and get this going here. Where did I put it? Yeah, that should be it. Why isn't it popping up? Oh, these things, I swear to God. Okay. I will get this. There we go. Okay. Alright. Alright, so what we're going to do is play, like I said, 10-minute, 10-second clip. And this is a great mix of what Jayta has filmed and captured over a 3-year period. And this was published on March 27th, 2020. All right. So, yeah, that was basically your your 3-year review of 10 minutes and 10 seconds, which again, I like the timing on that. And you presented a great range of different sightings that you've experienced. And maybe you want to touch on that a little bit more, and how you felt after 3 years of doing that, and how maybe you feel now after that, which wasn't that long ago. I know you published it recently, but Jada, how do you feel after being involved with this? What does your inner feeling tell you about everything that's going on inside and outside, should I say?
Well, it feels like a journey that's has is not complete, that will continue, and I feel rather satisfied about that, because it feels like all of my experiences in life have kind of led me to that door of being able to understand things on a deeper level and deeper matters about reality. So that's where it's kind of put me. I feel also that there's been a definite connection made with nature, and a definite probing into this idea of consciousness in ways that have just been really mind altering. And we're talking about mind altering, we're saying consciousness altering.
Absolutely.
And life altering, therefore. So
yeah.
it's
Comes
really
with the territory,
profound.
right?
Yeah, and it's on those tips that I would just want everybody to understand that if they can receive it that way, it is something to invest one's time in, because it really is a practice that can help to kind of get a handle, even though there's there's not much in the way of learning of understanding about how and why and who this is really for or from. It does set us on a kind of course of expansive consciousness, where I think can only be helpful. It can only add to us, and I like to think of it as a way that's necessary to get us through this age that we're in specifically.
Absolutely. I think that you wrapped it up beautifully right there. And I really highly suggest everyone go out and try and experience this for themselves. Just have an open mind, and go out there, kind of, maybe if you have to, maybe re-listen to what was talked about here. But I mean, the real basics and crux of all this is that you are opening yourself up and allowing yourself to let this into your life, and you give it love, you give it intention, you don't overthink things, and you maybe even add the childish aspect to it, and you'd be surprised what ends up happening. It might, Jada, I think the most important thing is that, expectations is, in any of this, is probably the worst thing that we can have. I think, because we really, there are times when you might go outside and have, like you had, the handful of opportunities that you had, where you kind of saw what you were thinking about, whether it's a telepathic type thing or what have you, or if it's just most of the time it's just random. It's random, but it interacts with us, it connects with us, And pretty much anyone has this ability. So I really suggest everyone get out there and just give it a try, and don't try to disconnect yourself from that materialistic mentality.
And if I could add one more
Of
thing
course,
too.
yeah, please.
What we had talked about, a question you had before about societal, how it affects society and societal changes. I think it really has the potential to strengthen our relationship with each other, because I realized after my first experiences, I got on immediately. I think I put out an ad on Craigslist for local people to come and let's have a discussion group. Let's meet and talk about this thing. And I actually had somebody answer and said they wanted to experience. A complete stranger drove to my house. It was a woman. And she came at night, so she didn't know who she was coming to. It's a Craigslist ad,
Wow, yeah.
But she didn't. She just stepped out of her car. She was, she didn't approach me. I came up to her and I said, we can, we can be right here and just do it from here. And we exchanged a little bit, but we got right into it. And immediately it felt like all of the trepidation was gone. All of the distrust, or all of that was mitigated by just us connecting on this sublime level. So
wow, that's a great story.
Yeah, so that's an example of how this can really create and mend relationships, help us to get outside of the fear, some of the intrinsic fears that we have across culturally, across racially, in the world.
And all it takes is that cascade effect of something as simple as like what you did, is by placing that Craigslist ad. And all she has to do, or in a future example, is you do something like that, or someone listening to this video goes out and does something similar, posts on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, any platform you can think of. Craigslist, doesn't matter. They post that, and if you get that one response, and who knows, that one response might trickle down. And if it continues to trickle down, it might actually cause that effect to instigate change in where we live for the better. And again, I think we have all these other things like, we think we can go and protest with a sign and that's going to do anything. I think we're kind of beyond that at this point. I think we're at the point where, we human consciousness has such immense power, and we need to try our best to utilize that to make changes for the better. And Jayta, it's been really a great conversation with you. I can't thank you enough for sitting down with me and having this discussion. It's been a pleasure. And I hope we can do it again sometime. Like we had talked about previously, it would be nice to maybe get a panel of people who are who are involved with this phenomenon, and kind of bring it in a bigger light, so others can see that this is not just some fluke. I mean, it's real. It exists. And this is something I've done. I mean, this type of a show is, even as much as I respect you, Jayta, it's difficult for me to cover this type of topic here because it's so outside the box for most people that it's open for ridicule. Half of the footage that I would like to present on this channel, I don't. For that reason, because the main purpose is trying to get through to people and get them to see in a different light. And not everyone is into this type of thing, so this one type of thing could taint another message. And it's kind of the way things are here. It's more about a wide spectrum of different views to look at. And I love the anomaly thing. I just, we have to, I guess, I feel like, we each have our individual journey here. and we have our niche areas that we're involved with, and we really need to do our best to better society. And knowledge is the power, my friends. It really is. It's all about being able to open yourself up to knowledge, and not battling cognitive dissonance every minute you breathe, because once you do that, you close the door to so many things, and we can grow so much here and have an impact on not just society, but more importantly, we are on an individual journey here. And in the end, no matter what happens, we have to all do what's best for ourselves, our friends, our family, but we really have to concentrate on ourselves and bettering ourselves, because it's a learning experience. Everything here is a learning experience. It doesn't matter how weird it gets, or how freaky it gets, or how good it gets. It doesn't matter. Everything is thrown at us for a reason, whether by design or not. Everything here is about that learning experience. And Jayta, I can't tell you how much I've learned off of your channel, and I really appreciate you and everything that you've done, because seriously, you've helped me in a great way. And so I thank you, and I thank you for joining me tonight. It really means a lot that you took the time to sit down with me. So thank you.
Thanks,
and everybody else.
fully for that. Yes.
Yeah. All right, so with that, I think we're going to wrap things up. Jayta, again, thank you, and be sure to check out his channel. I'm going to make sure to include the links to the videos that were played in the description after we get off here. And it might take a little while for this video to process, but it'll be available. And if you're watching the replay, please take the time to go check out Jayta's channel. There's a lot of stuff on there, and don't be afraid to go outside and manipulate reality and have some fun, because we have much more power than we are led to believe. And again, thank you, Jayta.
Thanks much, brother.
I think that's going to wrap things up. Thank you, guys. Blessings to you all. Have a good night. Have a good weekend. And we'll see you soon.
Truth, power.
That's right.